Welcome back, degenerates, to Place Your Bets. I'm Tyler James, not wearing red. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. We cover Notre Dame football recruiting and more for InsideNDSports.com on the Rivals Network. And we also like to make prop bets about Notre Dame football. We had a lot of folks on the Insider Lounge go 4-0 on prop bets last week, as I decided to not count the Bert Emanuel bet because it seemed a little bit unfair that folks could get in their bets after he was ruled out for the game. I just so happen to be one of those 8, so let me pat myself on the back for a moment here. But I'm still chasing Scott Clarsey just like the rest of us in the subscriber contest. He has 14 correct through 4 games. Eric is right behind at 13, and I'm in a big group of folks with 12 correct through the season. I think this week might be the week we get some separation because at least in putting these prop bets together, I thought they might be a little difficult. Did I make you think a lot about these, Eric?
No.
All right. Got any more brain busters?
And part of it is I didn't have time to really. I thought these were easier, so I'll probably get them all wrong. And I was trying to think of a new irrelevant nickname for you, and I also was wondering, if I end up winning this, do I get to pick a subscriber to give a free subscription to for a year?
We are not including ourselves in the standings. So if you finish first, the second and third would get the prize for the subscribers. So the standings for them are just separate. We're just including ourselves to have some competition with those folks as well.
For superiority competition.
Yeah, to prove how smart we are, of course, or how bad we are. As a reminder, if you're an InsideNDSports.com subscriber, make sure you submit your predictions through the Google form link that is in the Place Your Bets voting thread, on the Insider Lounge. And now let's make our predictions with this week's prop bets for Notre Dame, Ohio State. First one I have for us, Eric, is over under 95.5 rushing yards for Notre Dame running back Audric Estimé.
Well, he's the second leading rusher in the country right now and third in average per carry. The question is Notre Dame's offensive line going to be up to the task? I think the quarterback makes a huge difference in that. So far through the first 4 games, Notre Dame has been able to open up the run with the pass and open up the pass with its run. And I think they can toggle back and forth until both things are working for them in this game. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. Ohio State's run defense is typically sound, but I do think that Audric Estimé in this Notre Dame running game has the ability to break longer runs, as we've seen so far this season. And I think that is something that Ohio State it's still a concern, at least from my perspective, for Ohio State if they can prevent those. Like Ohio State struggled with that at times last year, gave up 165 yards to Wisconsin's Braylon Allen. Michigan's Donovan Edwards had 216 yards with a number of long runs. So I'm counting on Audric Estimé to bust loose and have a couple of longer runs that make it easier to get over that 95.5 rushing yard mark, even though I do think Ohio State will be able to sort of stack some stuffs on top of each other and make it difficult for Notre Dame to run the ball at times. But I think Notre Dame will stick with it because of the ability that Audric has to bust loose down those kind of runs.
I'll give you a little tidbit that was in my Thursday notebook. Notre Dame's run blocking grade from Pro Football Focus in the first Ohio State game of last year, 2022. They've been doing game grade since 2014. That's the second worst run block grade they've gotten in all that time.
Yeah, Notre Dame's offensive line was not in great shape to start the season last year, and it took a while to get things going. We'll see if the 4 games with the new offensive guards this year have been enough to prepare itself for the challenge that Ohio State will present. All right, somewhat related to what Notre Dame's offensive line will be facing, more sacks, Notre Dame or Ohio State?
And Notre Dame's pass blocking grade wasn't great either, but they've had a lot of clunkers between 2014 and now, so it wasn't quite as dramatic. It was the worst pass blocking grade of 2022. They gave up 3 sacks in that game. Notre Dame got 1. You know, this was the most difficult one for me because McCord isn't particularly mobile. and Notre Dame and Ohio State, neither one has gotten a lot of sacks, but I'm going to go with Ohio State here.
Yeah, I went back and forth a lot here. It's difficult because I think Ohio State, I think probably the most talented matchup on the field is Ohio State's defensive line versus Notre Dame's offensive line. And how that plays out in terms of the pass protection is intriguing to me. But even though Notre Dame's defensive line hasn't been that stellar in terms of pass rush, I think there's more questions about the Ohio State offensive line, especially at the left tackle spot. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I think it's going to be close. I don't think there's going to be a wide margin between the two teams in terms of total sacks, but I'm going to lead towards Notre Dame having more sacks of Kyle McCord than Ohio State will get of Sam Hartman.
I think the really interesting thing too for me is in last year's game, none of the sacks came from their edge players. One was from Hall, the interior guy, and then Eichenberg, the linebacker, got 2.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what Ohio State's going to need to do to pressure against Notre Dame is try to isolate some of Notre Dame's guards in some bad spots and even Zeke Correll at times as well. All right, next one, over under 85.5 receiving yards for Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr.
You know, when you look at him in the national stats, he's not yet tearing it up, even as much as he did last year. And I just don't think that's going to keep. I think he's going to get at least one big play because Notre Dame's going to be, I think, at times committing a safety to the run, at times blitzing linebackers. And I think they're going to be able to take advantage of that at least once. So I'm going to go over with Harrison.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. He's had 9 100-yard receiving games in his Ohio State career, which tied him with Chris Carter. So some pretty good company there. I think Notre Dame's going to do a decent job and have a concerted effort to limit his big play potential. But I think in doing that, I think that opens up some opportunities for him to just sort of stack up some yards as a possession receiver, which he is fully capable of doing. He's not just a big play threat, although he is certainly very good at making big plays. He's a very reliable receiver that can settle into zones, beat guys in man coverage on short routes. So I think that he's going to have a number of opportunities to do that, even with Notre Dame's cornerback play. So I'm going over as well. All right, next up, which team will have the longest play from scrimmage?
That I'm going to go with Notre Dame on this one. They've hit a lot of home runs so far this year. If you think about the NC State game, there were a lot of, like, especially in the running game, there were short runs or even negative yardage runs and then these home runs. I think they have it in their running and passing game. Notre Dame has been pretty good at keeping a ceiling at least on the runs. So I'm going to say Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm going Notre Dame as well. I think that Notre Dame's offense's ability to make those big plays and have those long strikes, I think, is what makes this game one that Notre Dame has a realistic chance of winning. I think without that, I'm not sure that Notre Dame can beat Ohio State, but I think it has a chance to. And that's, like I mentioned earlier, with Audric Estimé in the running game and Ohio State's previous performances defensively, specifically last year, they gave up some of those big plays. Now, I know we talked to Doug LeMaurice of the Kings of the North podcast earlier this week, and he said that some of those issues last year were related to Jim Knowles being more aggressive because he couldn't count on the front four to get pressure and put the defensive backs in bad spots. Now, will Ohio State have to continue to do that? We'll see, but I think Notre Dame has that ability to make those big plays, and that is one of the weaknesses of the Ohio State's defense, at least it has been in recent games. So we'll see if Notre Dame can take advantage of that. Next one, over under 2.5 passing touchdowns for Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman.
I'm going to go over. He's got 13 through 4 games. I don't think they'll come easy, but I think maybe the home run nature of things will lend itself to him getting passing touchdowns. I don't think there's going to be a lot more touchdowns beyond that scored in the game. I'm not predicting like 5 or 6 touchdowns total for either team. So, but I do think Sam Hartman will have 3.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. I think we've had a lot of similar answers, but I think some of them in different ways in terms of our reasoning. I think Notre Dame needs.
You mean me throwing a dart at the wall?
Notre Dame needs him to get into the end zone. I think in the goal line and red zone situations, I'm not sure that Notre Dame's running game will consistently win those situations against Ohio State's front 7. So I think Sam Hartman will be asked to get Notre Dame in the end zone with the pass. I do think, like you mentioned, there's a chance that he gets in the end zone on a long play as well. But I think the need for him remains high, even getting into the red zone and end zone in the goal line situations. So that's why I am going over 2.5 passing touchdowns for Sam Hartman. All right, our fun one this week. On College Game Day, will Desmond Howard pick Notre Dame or Ohio State? And this is courtesy of Jeff Stevens, a subscriber who suggested this one for us.
And I think Jeff also throws darts when he's doing this. I think that's what he said in the email. So we have the same technique. I must be a better dart thrower to this point. Sorry, Jeff. I think he'll pick Ohio State.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he'll. Well, I mean, they're the favorite. I don't know that. I don't know.
You think he'll want to be the heel? He want to be the heel in front of the Notre Dame crowd in front of Touchdown Jesus?
I don't think he cares. I don't think he's the best picker of that group. So, but maybe he'll be right. Maybe he'll be wrong.
I think maybe you're hinting at what your score prediction is there by saying that he's the worst picker and that he'll pick Ohio State. I think he's going to take Notre Dame. I think his hatred for Ohio State is higher as a former Michigan player. And I think this is sort of the time where it seems natural to pick against Ohio State because there's some vulnerabilities with this team and playing in Notre Dame Stadium. So I am going to predict that Desmond Howard will predict Notre Dame to win. All right, lastly, what are we predicting? What's your final score prediction for Notre Dame, Ohio State?
I went back and forth on this. I am going Notre Dame 30, Ohio State 27 in overtime.
Oh, an overtime prediction. We're right in the same ballpark. I have Notre Dame 31, Ohio State 30. So we're in for quite a doozy if either of our score predictions are remotely close. So I'm very much looking forward to this game on Saturday. I'm sure a lot of Notre Dame fans are, even the ones that are pessimistic by nature. But I think this is a really big moment for Notre Dame and head coach Marcus Freeman, and certainly the addition of Sam Hartman and what that means and can do for this program this season. All right, that is it for Place Your Bets. If you're an InsideNDSports.com subscriber, don't forget to submit your predictions through the link on the Insider Lounge. And for everyone here, make sure you hit the like button, share with us your predictions for the game in the comments, and subscribe to us here on the Inside ND Sports YouTube channel. We will be back early Sunday morning with a late night game Saturday for our post-game takeaways. And may the odds be ever in your favor.